Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of The Growth Show. I am delighted to be joined with Ollie Phillips. Ollie was the England Sevens Rugby Captain, also named Rugby Sevens Player of the Year, holds 4 world records, currently working at PwC, recently also appointed the Welsh Sevens ladies coach as well. And an authority when it comes to leadership and development. Ollie, thank you so much for joining us.
Mate, thanks for having me, Nick. I mean, mate, if you ever want to be my agent, then I would love to and fill that role and mantle. And even if you could just give that speech to my wife occasionally, that'd be brilliant, just so she knows why she married me. That'd be excellent too.
Yeah. I feel like I haven't done much of my life. It's just reading out your roll call of.
You've had a great.
I wanted to. There's a load to cover, but I thought we'd just start around, so it's very close to you, leadership. And what does leadership mean to you?
Well, yeah. To be honest with you, now obviously the time that we're in with COVID, coronavirus, and whatever, it's probably the perfect time to be looking out for leaders and leadership guidance through a pretty tumultuous, difficult time for lots and lots of people. For me, I used to think when I played rugby, leadership was all about going from the front and carrying the torch and running through brick walls and all the rest of it. And there is a little bit of that, I guess, an element of, if you won't do it, then how can anybody else be expected to do it? But I think as you can see, I've got lots of grey hair. So as I've got older, I sort of recognise that, leadership is just about taking time to recognise and understand the values and of all those people around you, like what's important to them, like aligning whatever your business strategy, forget your business strategy, just aligning your values and principles and the purpose of whatever it is that you're trying to do with those aims, ambitions, objectives of all those people around you. The quicker that you can hone into that and understand that, then the more effective leader or the greatest sense of leadership skills you're gonna show. And that for me has been something that's evolved over time, but definitely something I've recognised of real leadership, and the best leaders I've ever worked with are the ones that have understood what I'm about and given me the opportunity to flourish and be me, give the best version of me in any given circumstance.
Yeah, and you mentioned purpose in there and the importance of purpose within a company. How are you seeing some of your clients identify that right now?
I think, to be honest, it's probably the most prominent and prevalent thing going on at this present moment in time, when you've got a virus that is unfortunately we're at the mercy of it, everyone, and it's taking lives and whatever else. If unless people are fully engaged with what your organisation is about and what it represents, and that they can really feel a part of it, and actually that it is achieving a greater good and working towards something that they truly value, then you're going to struggle to motivate them to do anything for you. I mean, at the moment, we're restricted to everybody being at home, and you can't turn up at the workplace. So if you're going to trust people and put all the integrity of your business into someone, they need to believe that actually what they're doing is for a greater good, for want of a better description. And some companies are absolutely nailing that purpose statement, what they're about, what their identity is, and who they are and what they represent. And they are shining through, some of them, and others are still, struggling to wrestle with that. I think realizing, oh my God, this is something we need to actually give a lot of credence to. But it's difficult as well when obviously the chips are down and you're trying to scramble uphill. But that's the most critical thing. Purpose-driven organisations, businesses, teams, whatever, are the ones that come out on top in the end.
Yeah, and how do you think managers and leaders should be looking to maximise potential of people right now? Like, what's the things you've seen that have stood out?
Actually, one of the greatest things that ever stood with me was when I was at Newcastle Falcons, my first ever club. and we had, or he's still around, but at the time we had a short little fat Geordie bloke that was our fitness coach. He was more than that. He was a life coach. He was everything. He was, if I'm honest, he's my own personal coach. And he was a guy called Steve Black. He was the guy behind Johnny Wilkinson that sort of made him the player that he was, and et cetera, et cetera. And I never forget, he came to me, and it was probably one of the greatest bit of management speak or coaching advice that he'd ever given me. And it was so simple. A lot of this stuff is common sense, but not necessarily common practice. Yeah. And he just came over to me and he said, look, Ollie, I was 19, 20, I think at the time. And he said, look, maximize your strengths and just manage your weaknesses. And I was like, what are you on about, Blackie? Yeah, of course. He's like, look, you're going to come across loads of coaches, loads of managers in your time on the rugby field and away that are going to come up to you and they're going to literally tell you everything that you're bad at. Right? And if you listen to it, you've only got 24 hours in every day. You're going to spend all of that time working on stuff that you're naturally or just not that good at. And everything that you're amazing at, which is why we brought you here, you're going to forget about. And all you'll end up doing is just ending up in the middle and being average. And nobody wants anyone that's average. So I was like, oh, right. So it stuck with me all the way through, just understanding and guess what I'm really good at and what I'm not so good at. And then just working all the time on making sure that my strengths are like super sharp, super honed, and my weaknesses are not something that's going to, cause the team to trip up or lose or anything like that. And that is possibly one of the best bits of advice I've ever had. Luckily, I got it early doors.
It is good. We have an expression, turning up the volume, right? We just focus on crank the dial where you can to 10 and don't worry about the other dials. There's not too many 360, perfect humans out there, right? In this
No. I can give you a brilliant example, right? I won't name any names, but I remember there was this awesome young hooker that was coming through at Newcastle when we were there. Super, super talented, absolutely brilliant. When he got the ball in his hands, a bit like, if people know their rugby, a bit like Short Brits who played for Sarries, just could do magic with the ball, right, in his hand. And he turned up, but he was light. He was, 90 kilos or whatever. And so the coaches at the time were like, you got to put weight on. Like, you got to get bigger, you got to get stronger or whatever. So all he did was focus for like 4 months, 6 months on eating loads, getting massive, loads of weights and whatever else. And at the end of the year, he was a young lad, like 19, 20, was hoping to get another contract. And they said, no, we're not giving you another contract. And he was like, well, why? What, I've done everything you asked. I've put on like 6 kilos. I'm stronger and whatever else. It's like, yeah, well, you're not dynamic anymore around the park, And it's like, oh, if that kid, you've just ruined that kid's, ruined that kid's experience, that kid's coaching journey, because everything that he was brilliant at the beginning was actually all you wanted. But it was only until you got him massive and slow and sluggish that you realised, and by then it's too late. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What would you say is the difference between good coaches and good managers?
Well, two very different skill sets. Great question. Coaching, there's obviously lots of crossover and transfer, but the best coaches don't always make the best managers. Equally, the best managers don't make the best coaches. And I think great coaching is having a real passion point for teaching and for teaching and educating and supporting and taking people through a journey and seeing talent being nurtured and flourished. Management for me feels more like, and people will disagree, but management feels like you're very good at the detail. You're organised, you're on form, you're great at process. You're really good at putting the jigsaw puzzle together. So your time and effort and energy and skill set, strength is all focused on that. Whereas a coach is best utilised, not worrying about process and detail and organising and timing. It's about, here's a shiny stone, get the best out of it, shine it, coach it, educate it, come at it from so many different angles and different perspectives to try and make sure that you land and resonate with the way that person wants to learn. Like, I don't know, I am somebody that is very energy focused. I need energy, I need high fives, lucky bum taps, cuddles, lots of visual learning, lots of, come and talk to me, make it face to face. like I'm not great at like, send me 40 pages to read it. I'll fall asleep after 2. So I need that conversation stuff. Whereas somebody else is it could be all about, I want the literature, I want the facts, I want the data, I want to process it. And great coaches recognize that, and they deliver the content in the way that it needs to be delivered, so that the individual gets better. Managers are the ones that are great at just putting all those blocks in place, so you've got all the access to whatever it is you need, and they keep the shit steered direction. For me,
yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And how have you adapted your sort of coaching and management style from moving from a sports environment into a corporate environment?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, it hit me like a freight train. I think I definitely had so I was, for me, I was coming from an environment. It was compounded of a whole series of things, but I came from an environment where I was ultimately I got voted as the best player in the world at one point in time. So I'm not saying I was the best player in the world, but like, as an elite sportsman playing professional rugby, you are in the top 5 percentile of rugby players in the world. And so therefore you're good at your job, right? But I was also very good at like a specific role in my job. So I was a winger, if people know rugby. So therefore my job was, catch high balls, score tries. That was, the limits of what I was meant to be doing. So very specialist, niche, but I understood the game plan as well. Like I didn't know how to be a prop. I could look at a prop and be like, that's not, you're not doing very well. I don't know why, but you're not doing very well. Coming into a corporate environment at PwC, I was suddenly like, full of energy and up for it and whatever else. But then it dawned on me like, okay, well, hold on. All the things that I was good at, or it wasn't going to be much use to PwC catching a high ball or smashing somebody at the, photocopying machine or something like that. Yeah. I don't think it would have gone too well with HR. So it was quite a steep learning curve and transition for me around, hold on, here I am as a director in this business, a bit of, feeling like a fake and whatever else like that, in terms of, okay, hold on, I think I've got these transferable skills, don't really know what they are, don't know how to apply them. I'm sitting in meetings, people are asking me for my opinion and direction and guidance, and I'm not entirely sure what I should be saying. So, that, if you like, self-doubt sort of self-perpetuates. So it took me a little while to get comfortable. It was bizarre. Another thing we used to say when I played with England, you used to have to get comfortable at being uncomfortable. And I used to love that. I used to relish that experience with England, because it was all about the physical, mental challenge of putting yourself in a horrible place, physically, mentally, whatever. But I didn't necessarily relish it as much when I was in a corporate environment. It took me a while to appreciate that statement, because I was like, well, I really don't like this feeling of being, the least knowledgeable in the room, and is everybody looking at me going, oh, like he's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's talking about, etc., etc., etc. They may have been thinking that. Nobody ever said it, but I'm sure they weren't. But it's your own, it's your own brain playing games on you, playing tricks on you. So yeah, it certainly took me a while to mold and get comfortable with my new environment, and then recognize my skill sets, my strengths, which were about people and understanding and asking. I thought the dumb questions were quite relevant to the scenario, and then understanding what's important to Nick. What are you trying to do here as my client? What's really important? Rather than me coming to you selling something, because I don't have anything to sell personally, except for my business, my PwC, if you like. So what is it, the problem that you're wrangling with, and how can I solve that? Let me go and find in my library of experts, let me go and find the person I think that can really help you, and I won't waste your time until I've found that person. And then you're incredibly grateful because I've saved you time, effort, money, because I've listened to the problem. And that, for me, the biggest thing transferring into PwC was probably the one thing I didn't do loads of as a player was listening.
Right.
Just listening to what people need and want and what their problems are.
Yeah. And do you think you can spot? I think, look, we all suffer from imposter syndrome, right, going through our lives. Do you think you can spot that in people now across boardrooms? I mean, I see it daily. You know, people in their 50s, 60s who are still not fully comfortable with where they've got to. Do you think you can identify that better if you're going through that experience?
Yeah, I think you definitely can. I mean, you know, and I see that. I'm a bit like you. I probably don't see it as often as you do, but you know, I see those people that are trying. You know, they all say everyone's trying to fake it till they make it, but you know, I think imposter syndrome is prevalent in most people because you know, as you move through the food chain, in theory, you know, everybody should be putting themselves in a position where they're uncomfortable because that's the only way you're going to learn. Like if it's easy and you know everything, life becomes pretty dull quite quickly. So everybody should be feeling a little bit of an imposter in their environment because it's encouraging them to flourish. But you can see it, and I think it's probably a criticism more of the environment that they're in than the individual themselves.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that they, you know, are not, if you like, supported and encouraged to learn and make mistakes, so that therefore when they sit in boardrooms or they sit in whatever, they feel like they have to play out this role. And actually, the stark reality is that by them doing that, you're actually putting everyone else at risk. You know, by you not creating an environment of safety and encouraging them to learn and make mistakes and whatever else like that, and then, you know, effectively having a bit of bravado to try and pretend like they know what they're talking about. Everybody's actually more at risk.
Yeah.
Them, they might break down or whatever else. Your business, because they might make the wrong decisions and carry it on because they don't want to admit they made a mistake. And then you as an entity, an organisation, doing the ostrich and just putting your head in the sand and hoping that they don't cock it up.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of egos right now, especially with the first real crisis we faced. There's a lot of leaders having an image in their mind of what a leader should be, right?
Yeah.
That possibly isn't maybe as open as they need to be right now.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, it takes a very humble human being to hold their hand up and say, okay, we got this one wrong. You know, we thought we were in tailwinds, we're actually in headwinds now. To be honest, I don't think anybody could have predicted that there was going to be a mass virus that spread across the world and stopped it dead in its tracks. So
yeah.
You know, you have to be a bit clairvoyant to do that one. But so, you know, and you know, maybe some companies over leveraged themselves and took on too much debt, or you know, I don't know, whatever the scenario is, and companies are reeling off the back of that. But if I'm honest, the only time I ever learned in sport was when we lost.
Right.
Yeah. The only time you lose, because when you win, even if you've made mistakes, people are normally over exuberant about the fact that they've lost, they've won the game, and so they're a bit more slack on their, you know, analysis or whatever else like that. It's only when you lose that you sort of take a step back, you know, get punched in the face, knocked out, you're like, oh, I better put my hand up next time. You know, so it's that sort of environment that, you know, I think the best leaders will come out of this environment right now because they've learned how to be agile and manage people properly and recognize the strengths and weaknesses of their business and think on their feet, and all of that is going to be hugely beneficial to the people and to the organization. But you need to have the courage and conviction to back, you know, those people. You've got to, you know, it takes some brave souls aboard or whatever to say, you know what, we've just lost, make it up. We've just lost 500 million. But I think actually, Ollie, you're the right person to back here, because actually how you've responded, how you've reacted, how people have all rallied around you, it could have been a billion. Could have been a billion. You've actually stopped us losing another 500 million. And you know what? Now, because of the way you've acted and behaved, the structures you've put in place safeguard the business better, and everybody here is grateful to you. Like they've got you forever. You know, you've got their loyalty, you've got their trust. That's the most important things you need. If you've got people that will go to war with you, then you've won half the battle already. And because they believe in you, they trust in you, they know that you've got their best intentions at heart. And you know, right now, it's hard. That people would be very grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things I think right now is because the unknown. As a leader, you want to give firm, decisive action points going forward, but there are just few areas at the moment where we just don't know, right?
Yeah.
And that vulnerability, I think is key. I think actually, being transparent on what is known and what is controllable, and what is unknown and uncontrollable is key now. But I also think from a lot of the guys I see and we help and sort of mentor, we're looking at a lot of people surrounding themselves with other mentors and having chats like this, which help my business, and I know will help plenty of other businesses. Have you had a culture of surrounding yourself with mentors?
Yeah, 100%. I try all the time.
Right.
I get the most inspired from people that I always walk away thinking, God, you're so much more intelligent than me, which thankfully, Nick, happens fairly frequently. Because,
not on this call.
So I just think, again, I think it comes back to a bit of humility, like that we spoke about, like having that foresight, humility, whatever you want to call it, to recognise that you don't know everything. And actually, if you can act as a sponge, act as a sponge rather than a rock, or the classic management analogies or whatever. But there's some genuine thought and rationale behind it, which is if you can appreciate the thoughts of other people around you, recognise the support structures that you can have with other people. It's times like this that it's going to pay off, because you've got lots of different opinions and different angles, and as long as you are able to maintain a bit of focus and clarity and not just get clouded amongst all the noise, it's going to be really super beneficial. Whereas if you're just an individual that thinks it knows it all, you're going to have one opinion only, and that's your own. So unless you have absolutely nailed it, which I would, even the greatest and richest people in the world make it wrong. I mean, I saw the other day Warren Buffett come out and say, I called it totally wrong. I've lost 50 billion, but I'm out, And I think, for me, even at whatever he's 80 odd, I loved it. I loved his interview, whatever he did the other week, because I was like, that is the sign of somebody that is, he's made it, but he's still so humble and still loves learning, and still, the other thing you get with lots of egotistical people is they won't cut their losses. They will just lead it to the end because they can't be wrong. They just haven't got the humility to recognise that they were wrong, and that could either be their own egos, or that could be the environment that they're surrounded with. Like, I can't get this wrong. I can't. It's too costly. I've just got to keep going. Whereas I love people that just got the courage to say, look, 9 times out of 10 I get it right. 1 time, 2 times out of 10 I'll get it wrong, and I'm all right with that. I'm cool with that.
I think that's key. I think there's a load of leaders at the moment who are sort of obsessed with success, or haven't tasted any kind of disappointment over the last sort of 5-6 years.
Yeah,
and that constant winning and constant success is quite dangerous, because you get hungry for more and more and more. How do you measure or justify success? What's the gauge you've used over your career?
I think you can get consumed with that word, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And ultimately the definition of what that word is, because most people equate success to, and I've certainly been a victim of this in the past, to being number one and having more than everyone else, and being the the leader and the head of the game and whatever else like that. I think what the one great thing about this current scenario is that success right now is actually having a population and a community that are respectful, that are appreciative of each other, that look out for each other, that are supportive, and whatever else. Money and is money and wealth and number of cars you've got, or how big your house is, or whatever, is totally irrelevant right now. And what I've enjoyed over the past, whenever I used to take part in anything, now I'm still a competitive soul, don't get me wrong, right? But whenever I used to when I was playing for England, whatever, it was win at all costs. You just win at all costs, and there wasn't any sort of real rationale as to why. You just became obsessed with it. Whereas, and now, for me, anyway, success is actually around, is all centered around, actually, it's everybody else who I know and I work with and I'm affiliated with, and from my family, my wife, my kids, to my PA or whatever. Are they happy? Like, are they happy? Like, am I supportive of them? Am I helping them achieve like their dreams and their aspirations in life? Because if I am, I can tell you what, my life is 20 times more enriched. I'm going to get 100 times more reciprocal value. And even though that's not what I'm angling for, but if you help people, people help you back 15 times over.
Yeah.
And that's what I've recognized and realized in the past, which is sometimes you have to make tough calls, of course, that some people are going to get upset by. And probably in the heat of the moment, they don't really appreciate or recognize the benefit of that decision. But in the long run, I think they do. I really do think they do. And I actually remember when I was coming towards the end of my career, there was a young lad that was desperate to make it as a rugby player, but he had a super small startup business, and his passion and his skill set and his strength was all in that business, right? But he was obsessed with being a rugby player. But the reality was he wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough to play, and sometimes. Yeah. I mean, you have to be cruel to be kind or whatever. You've got to say to people, look, I really think that this is not the horse you need to be riding right now. There's a better one for you down the road, and whilst it probably tastes pretty awful right now, you're really going to appreciate it. And I never forget, 2 years ago, he rang me and I was like, mate, it was the best decision I ever made. And like, thanks ever so much for that coffee that day where we just went out. And I said, look, why are you flogging the horse? Like, because what people try and do is they've got this vision of success. They chase after it. Every time they get disappointed, they throw more hours and more hours at it. And actually, the way it makes them feel is just worse and worse and worse.
Yeah,
they feel less satisfied because nobody else is recognizing and appreciating them, and it becomes even more unattainable. And sometimes success is about helping people see the wood from the trees.
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly valuable point. Well, with your career, how did you map it out? Was it by chance, or was there a big strategy around it?
I thought you were going to say from your career, someone should have just told you that at 20. Saved us all the disaster. Well, mate. So again, a bit of learning. Like my career was luck more than judgment. So to give you a very quick summary, I went to a Rugby World Cup, Sevens World Cup in Moscow. I got injured and I've been struggling with an injury. And what I thought was my grand plan was I was going to go, I had a 3-year contract on the table and I was going to go to the Rio 2016 Olympics and I was going to have my swan song and I was going to go off into the sunset from there. I got injured this World Cup and within 5 hours, my contract had been pulled and I'd been told that, look, it's all over. You probably need to retire. So I was like, wow. Days ago, this is not like the greatest day I was expecting. And I was sort of 29 at the time. And there was a guy called Sir Robin Knox-Johnson who founded this thing called the Clip Around the World race, this sailing race around the world. And he said, look, we've just done a deal with Downing Street and this campaign called the Great Campaign. We'd love you to become like an ambassador for like a trade envoy for the Great Campaign and be a part of the Great Britain boat. So every port that we sail into on the Great Britain boat, you would be the spokesperson, turn up and talk about Britain. Business is great, adventure's great, sport's great, technology's great, encouraging foreign direct investment into the UK. I was like, okay. I mean, I was literally clutching at straws. I had the goal of going to Rio, being a captain for GB and whatever, just dashed in. So I was just clutching at anything. I was like, oh, done, brilliant. Probably driven a bit again through my eyes of what success were, which was reward, recognition, praise, ego driven, right? So luckily it was an incredible experience. And even though it was probably driven for the wrong reasons, it ended up being all for the right reasons. But on that race, I met a senior partner from PwC who did one of the legs. And he said, I've never met anybody that leads a team the way you lead a team. And I know you don't know anything about a business, but whatever happens, you have to come work for us. And I was like, who's us? And he was like, PwC. And I still was ego driven. I was like, nah, mate, brilliant. Thanks so much. But I'm going to finish this race off. My leg will have recovered. I'm going to go back and play, and I'll go to Rio and everything else like that. And I remember I got off the boat at St. Catherine's Dock in London, 11 months at sea. He gave me a massive hug because he came down to sort of welcome us in. Hadn't even on dry land. And he said, when are you going to come work for us? And I was like, whatever. And call it serendipity, but the night that I kind of knew in my gut 6 months later that it was all over Red Rover, he said, look, mate, I've sorted it. We want to bring you in as a director and come work as in digital transformation in tax. And I remember saying to him, oh, man, it's awesome. Definitely. And I put the phone down, I rang him straight back. I said, Michael, just a small detail. I don't know anything about tax. I don't know anything about digital. I don't know anything about PwC. And he said, don't worry, you'll be perfect. That was it. And 5 years later, I'm still there.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So you talk about coaching, and coaches are brilliant. I'm not saying he was a brilliant, but it's about talent spotting, if you like, talent IDing and seeing the strength of people, even when they might not see it themselves. And he saw that in me. And I'm very grateful and thankful to him for that. But and I said to you, I struggled initially to how to apply it, but over time it's become a lot easier.
That's brilliant. And do you feel you get to use your skill set, your full skill set now on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean it goes in peaks and troughs. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I mean I do certainly I try and do it every day, like with my clients and with the people that I work with and whatever else like that. But I still think, in terms of even though I'm a director at PwC, I still think I'm in my relative infancy, if you like, in terms of my whatever corporate leadership experience. I'm trying to apply my behaviours, the stuff I know, into an environment where I've only been there for 5 years in the world of work. So. Again, I think I went into it with the assumption that I'm captain of England. I'll just pick this up like that.
Yeah.
And it's classic Mike Tyson analogy. Like you can train all you like and psych yourself up until you get punched in the face, and then the game's is a total game changer. So for me, I walked in, got punched in the face, and then licked my wounds for a little bit, and then thought, okay, let's start this learning process. And and it's been a great one. There's obviously days of massive frustration, and then other days of huge elation where you get it right. So hopefully there's more elation than deflation. Yeah,
that'd be a good win. And when we're hopefully out of all the COVID shenanigans, what do you see your next sort of 6 months being?
Well, if I'm honest, you mentioned it earlier that nobody really knows what the future is and what the future's going to hold. I actually think that there's quite a nice sort of, I guess, reassurance of that, of like there's so much possibility on the horizon, because we're almost ground zero is a bit extreme, but everybody is confined to actually just revel in the moment and enjoy actually the opportunity that you've got of being with your family, being with your loved ones, being. Some people are not fortunate enough to be that. Some people are stuck on their own in a flat for 8 weeks in almost like isolation, which is, I feel for those people more than anything else. And I'm not personally, I'm not a buyer of, we're just going to, next week or 2 weeks time, whatever, flick a switch and everything goes back to normal. For me, this is a gradual reintegration of society into a new normal, to be honest. And I hope that what it's done, and you've seen it across the UK at the moment, it's ignited in certain situations a huge respect and admiration and love for people that give up their, in particularly the NHS, for example, that that give up their heart and soul, they put their lives at risk for the greater good of mankind. and I think that's putting everything else into perspective. And so I hope a little bit that post-COVID, we recognise that and continue that, because I think actually the working world and society as a whole will be much richer for it if we do. The classic would be that we define success as how we used to define it, and we all go through each other over, and we end up in exact same places we were before. And for me, some people in our government are exemplary, and I think you can see in other places around the world their behaviour is just disgraceful. And it's what's becoming even more prevalent. It's about how you behave and how you make people feel that then engenders all these emotions. I've always say that emotions create feelings, feelings drive behaviour, right? So how you are made to feel, and how you, like, if I trust you all day long, I'll turn up. If you ask me to wake up at 3 a.m, I'll do it for you because I trust you and I believe in what you're saying is for the greater good. If I think you're a liar, you're conniving, you're two-faced, you're selfish, egotistical, I'm not going to get out of bed until I want to get out of bed. So I hope that we take that forward, and whenever the COVID veil gets taken up, which I think is months, if not years away, until we get a vaccine, we've got an opportunity to reset the balance and actually look after each other. And I know that sounds a bit sort of like happy clapping, and I don't mean it in that sense. I just mean that there's an ability here for us to create a fantastic social community within our workspace that really ticks, that really flies. Other than how it was before, which was a bit of everyone working in silos and doing stuff a bit secretive and whatever else. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned behaviours a few times there, and rewarding and driving good behaviour. It seems a pretty critical part of your being. You've always seemed to focus on the right behaviours. Well, hopefully.
Yeah. It's really important for me. Yeah. I mean, if you like, the best place I try and do that, I've got, well, a bit like yourself, Nick, but I've got 2 young kids. I've got a 2-year-old little girl and a 4-month-old little girl that, I've been born into a COVID environment or whatever else. But every day I try and, I guess, live. If you say what's leadership, every day I try and live and breathe great, honest, decent behaviours to my kids that will stand them as in great stead to be, I hope stand out people in society. And I think that's really important. And I think we lost our way a little bit on over time within that. And I think it then, I'm not trying to be a preacher of this sort of stuff. That's not what I want to do on this chat. It's more, it resonates across everything. If you're a decent person that acts with honesty and integrity and great values in everything you do, it resonates at home. It resonates with your, at home with your family, at work with your colleagues, with your friends, and everything you do, your decisions, if they're based on those principles, you're not going to go wrong. But if you try and steal a march and cut a corner, sure, you might win. You might win in the short term, in inverted commas, and make a few quid more than the other person. But is that really satisfactory for you? It doesn't make me feel great that if I've won and I'm 2 steps ahead, but somebody else has actually been left in the ditch and been burnt. I don't feel particularly great about that scenario.
Yeah, and we're seeing that more and more now. I mean, I remember in 2008 where there were a lot of people who maybe got to where they ended up through some fairly indifferent means, and the market just cleared them out. Sort of, it really felt from sort of 2009, 2010 onwards, the good guys started winning, and actually the importance of leadership again. And I think this COVID period will do exactly the same thing. I think the people who actually treat people correctly, look after people, and put people at the heart of their decision making will do really well. And will galvanise a team around them to really push on to come out. The ones who don't, I think they're going to find it a really tough time.
And I think I think what you're seeing at the moment is that the winners are the ones that are brave enough to admit that they don't know all the answers. I think on the COVID, because we're talking about it, I think the British public respect. I'm not saying they necessarily always want the answer, but if the government or if somebody turns around and says, look, this thing's moving so fast, I don't know, I don't know the honest answer, but this is what I think, this is what I feel. I'm trying to get as much data to support this thought process, and this is the trajectory that we're going to go on. If I'm wrong, I'll hold my hands up. I can even, you can even get rid of me at the end of it if you like. But this is the way I think we need to go in order to come out the end of this in a better place than most, right?
Yeah.
And I think you got to respect that, because sometimes you just can't, as you said, you don't know what the future is going to hold. So you can't predict everything. You just got to make decisions on the here and now, and act with great values and good principles, and you'll come out at the end of it hopefully in a better place.
Yeah, and I know you love a challenge. So what's the type of work or personal challenges you're going to be setting over the next 12 months?
Well, unfortunately,
if you
all
can.
all the physical ones that I was loving or looking forward to do. I was due to ride around the whole of Ireland for a good friend of mine, Doddy Weir, who's got motor neurone disease, but that had to be cancelled because of the obviously current situation. I was going to take a whole group of people out to Malawi to do a sort of a rugby engagement piece over there with a company called Orbis, and that in October that's been postponed for the time being. So I think in terms of like the challenges that I've set myself, if you like, they're not climbing mountains or setting world records or anything like that. It's just, for me, it's about, okay, the challenge right now is how can I go out and help as many people as possible? Like, generally, that's my sort of philosophy. How can I find out from as many people as possible what's troubling them, what things they're wrestling with, and how can I help solve that? And again, I'm going to hold my hands up and say, look, I won't be able to do all of it, but hopefully I can do a few of them. And if I do, then that's an awesome challenge complete, if that makes sense. Because all the things I've ever loved doing, everything in my life, not irrespective of a challenge, I've never woken up and gone to myself or gone to my wife or whatever. There was this one time that was on my own, and it's brilliant. It's always like, Nick, do you remember that time that we spoke to each other for your podcast, and it was like ridiculous, and you couldn't shut me up? Or do you remember this time where we went up Everest, or blah blah? It's all about stories. It's all about sharing stories, and COVID-19, people will share stories from that. Hopefully, there will be positive outcomes, in certain aspects of it. For lots of people, there are not so many, who have lost loved ones, and it's been a traumatic experience. Or if you're working on a frontline in NHS, hopefully, even then you can see every grey cloud has a silver lining of some sort. So, and that for me, sitting in the comforts of my own home with my family, I hope that I can at least do that as my contribution to society.
Yeah, and finally, if you ran into a young Ollie Phillips, what advice would you give him?
I would honestly, I would tell him now, because I still am a victim of this occasionally myself, but I would say stop worrying about what everyone else thinks.
Right.
Because I think, if I'm honest, this was probably the negative from professional sport, was it's an environment whereby ultimately one person decides the fate of your career. Whether you play or whether you don't play on the weekend is determined by one person, the head coach. And so you lived your life every single day, ultimately trying to please that person or validate yourself to that person. And so my existence, if you like, became about, my focus became about doing everything I possibly could to tick the boxes that they needed ticking rather than the boxes that I needed ticking. So bizarrely, even though don't get me wrong, I love my rugby career and I'm so grateful for it and everything else like that, I think it would have been an even better experience if I'd have just focused on the things that mattered to me and just worried about my game, you know. So I would say to people, or the young Ollie Phillips, just worry about your game. And I don't mean that in terms of rugby. I just mean that every day.
Yeah.
You know, worry about maximising your own potential and don't worry about what everyone else thinks because you can't control it. And I spent too many hours, sleepless nights, worrying about them, stressed about that, getting anxious about whether I get picked, why I wouldn't get picked, being so bitterly disappointed if it didn't go my way, confused, you know, all those emotions and feelings that I would imagine millions of other people have gone through off the back of this, not understanding somebody's decision. When the reality was, there's no way I could have controlled it, and I probably would have had a better outcome if I'd just not cared about them and just maximised me.
Yeah,
and then I would have got picked anyway.
Definitely. I don't think it matters what age you are for that advice as well. I think it's true to everyone. I would love to put some links on how people get in contact with you. That's right, because I do think coming out of this, there is a huge amount of value you can offer to people, just from like regalvanizing people, from behaviours to helping oversee some of the business stuff they got going on, or just sitting in a pub with you reminiscing some stories, which are amazing.
Be great. Yeah, I'd love, you know, life's, as I said, life's all about stories. I'd love to sit there with you and whoever else just to sort of chew the fat. Everyone's got different stories in their life that are fascinating, and I want to exit this planet whenever it is, hopefully in many, many years to come. But, you know, having said, you know what, bloody hell, I've heard some amazing stories in my time. What? Because I've heard what everyone else has lived as well, you know, shared all their experiences. So, yeah. Mate, that'd be awesome.
I've already had a few of the fintech CEOs message me, very keen to see this one and catch up afterwards. So I'll speak to you offline about all that. But Ollie, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's always a pleasure catching up with you. Some great insights, and I will hopefully see you in person relatively soon.
Mate, I look forward to it. Top man, stay safe, and you know, everyone else, look after yourselves, and we'll catch up soon.
Brilliant. See you, buddy. Bye.
Mate, bye-bye.